Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to everybody that's listening and watching us at the moment. This is the first episode of MovieByte podcast, where we'll be uh, digesting, analyzing, breaking down top movies that have an impact through our culture and our movie entertainment culture. Join me, Ruben, as the host of this podcast, and also with my buddy, my pal, my film enthusiast, my film connoisseur, like my ride and die when it comes to movies. Aleks Bykov, okay? Say hi to everybody, Aleks.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. As Ruben said, we're gonna be digesting. We're gonna be spoon feeding you movies, which we love, and it's gonna be hopefully entertaining. Um, Maybe we're gonna give you some knowledge. Maybe we'll give you some more desire to go and see these movies, especially after 2020 has not been good to us movie fans. It's been pretty dry in that aspect. So we went back and we watched our favorites, our classics. We can call them cult classics at this point. Today we're gonna start with what's the movie today, Ruben?
We are going to start talking about, for our first episode, the movie Se7en, okay? Directed by David Fincher, released in 1995. And the reason we chose this movie, because I think this movie has had changed the face of what psychological thrillers are now whenever we see movies. When this movie was first released, it was one of like a little bit different compared to any other detective murder type movies. Also,
it was a lot of different.
It
was
is
groundbreaking. It was you kind of soft rolling this movie.
Yep, and this is the movie that pretty much put David Fincher's name out there. Like, this is the movie that made him the Fincher that we know now. It's the movie that pretty much finished launching Brad Pitt into stardom.
Yep, that was the breakaway role after doing so many. I mean, good movies in the late '90s. I mean, early '90s. He's coming from the one of my favorites, The Legends of the Fall, which
amazing movie.
Which thank you very much, Ruben. It took me a while to get you to watch that one. Maybe one day we're gonna go back to it. But yeah, it was interesting how not too many people wanted to actually take the role of David Mills. It was past the first of all. Let's start with the script. I think that's the way to kind of have the jumping point. That the script was written by, I mean, not too known at this point writer, and back in the days he was completely unknown. It was his first script. It was Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote. He wrote the first draft in 1992. The first draft was passed off by all the studios. Nobody wanted to take the time to even consider. It was rewritten because in the original, I don't know. We're going to spoilers right away, or how you want to do this?
Just so everybody knows, this podcast will have spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, just be aware. We'll be revealing the ending to the movie. So just sorry, heads up. But it's a movie that was released in 1995. You should have seen it by now.
And if you have not seen it, please press the pause button, come back to us, watch it. If you have seen it, I have to warn you about one thing. When we're gonna get to our dessert part of this meal, I want you to pause and think if you want to go through it, because for dessert I have something special, and you may not want to hear it, because if you've seen the movie and you think that this movie is very dark, I'm gonna make it a lot darker in the end. With that being said, let's go to the beginning.
All right. With that being said, we were talking about the script. For those who don't know, basically the plot of this movie revolves around two detectives that are trying to uncover a serial killer that uses the 7 deadly sins as his motive to kill his victims. Okay. So that's the basic plot. There's a lot more to the movie than just that. And this is what we're going to be doing through the entire podcast, is like analyzing every bit that we can to make this movie, for your first time experience, better, and for those who already seen it, make it an enhanced viewing
second
pleasure. A
second
second
viewing
pleasure
pleasure.
to what you're about to hear from us. So we were talking about the script. It was written by Andrew Kevin Walker,
Right. The
a
same guy
recent
who wrote
graduate.
8 millimeters, by the way.
Yep.
Underrated movie, but went to the little bit darker spot where it's not too comfortable for everybody to watch that. But that being said, it when Seven was first released, I don't think it was very comfortable to watch it. Like for me, it was the first experience was very dark. Like I was at the edge of my seat, and especially watching the murder scene after it happened. Right, like before this, every time you've seen a slasher or not slash detective movie, every movie you've seen, the usual serial killer or usual killer would show up in the first 5 minutes. Like you would see maybe his shadow. They would not reveal him as a person. They would not reveal his identity. That was like detective's job to kind of find out who this guy is. Here, first of all, here we start with the detectives. We start with introducing the Somerset on the spot. He's played by wonderful Morgan Freeman. By the way, that role could have been played by a lot of different actors who refused to play him. I can't name one on the top. You see, it's blurry. Can you help me with that one? You know who
Yeah, I actually had it pulled up. I can look it up really quick.
I know that Sylvester Stallone and Val Kilmer refused to play Detective Mills.
Also, Denzel Washington was offered the role of Mills, and he refused it at that time because, again, he said that the script was too dark for him.
Yeah.
And later on, he has admitted that he regrets his decision of not making this film. But Denzel Washington was offered the role way before they went with Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Brad Pitt was actually not the first choice. And the Brad Pitt was brought by original, I can't name you the director, don't hold me accountable. The first director who was offered the film and he refused to take it, but at least he gave the name to the Fincher saying, hey, listen.
So I got the two names of the actors that were offered the role of Somerset. First one was Robert Duvall, and the second was Gene Hackman. They were both offered the role of Detective Somerset, and they both declined it, and then it went to Morgan Freeman.
Right. So we got Detective Somerset playing by Morgan Freeman. So he's introduced in his apartment, and we kind of see him. By the way, a lot of times we don't notice that he's packed in his apartment. When you see him for the first time, everything is packed. The only thing is kind of like not packed is his metronome, and you see the chessboard, which I'm going to come back to that because it's that first shot. Originally, by the way, it was planned in all four scripts, which was given to the studio and to the Fincher himself. The introduction is that the Somerset bought a house somewhere on the farm, far away from the city, and he's kind of going in the introduction credits. He's going to that city, from the city to his house. So you kind of see him on the train, and you see this dark, gloomy description behind him. So he's moving to this house, and this house is beautiful, and he wants to spend the rest of his days there. He wants to leave the city cop life behind, but in the morning he has to return to it. So he's driving and leaving this beautiful scenery which he just acquired, and gets to the city. Now that never happened, and the rumors are that they did not have enough money, because usually the credits are filmed after the movie's made. So instead they were like, well, we have this Nine Inch Nails song, and then we have this credit scene where this lunatic is writing his journals, which were actually real journals. I mean, we're hitting with facts. People are like, get to the story.
I mean, the title sequence for this movie, it was one of the first of its kind. I know it was created specifically for the movie, obviously, but they used the font that serial killers will use, like the writings of serial killers, to create the title sequence of Se7en. And also Fincher having a music video background, he hires Nine Inch Nails to do like a new version of their song "Closer" for the title sequence, and at the very end of the title, you can hear the verse
gets me closer to God.
You get me closer to God. All right, and that's one of the lyrics from the song "Closer," which, if you listen to that song, it doesn't have to do anything with the movie, but just how its arrangement is designed fits perfectly, and it gets you right in the mood to what you're about to watch. And this is very typical of Fincher movies. If you see Fight Club, if you see Gone Girl, you see The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo,
Social Network,
they all have title sequences where the music is getting you ready for what you're going to experience from him. And that's a plus with any director that has a music video background, because they're going to use music to get you on the edge of your seat. And this is what the movie Se7en does right at the beginning after they introduce the character of Somerset.
And they have to prepare you, honestly, like as an audience member, you're about to step into very dark world. And we see it from the opening credits of the city, which is never named. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in my mind, it's like Los York, because it's like Los Angeles, it's New York, you got a subway, you got a desert outside.
You can say it's Los Angeles, you can say it's Chicago, you can say it's New York, and they never disclose it. The police cars don't have any logos that says what state they're in.
The taxis have just signed Metro on them, you know. There is a New York Pizza in there, but hey, New York Pizza can be in any city.
Anybody can have a New York Pizza logo anywhere, yeah.
Right. So, and this place, that I think Fincher does a great job of describing and creating this exposition of the place, of what is here. Because Somerset asked me also right away, is like, why did you transfer here? Like, what was so bad in your small town cop life that you had to take your wife and move here to this godforsaken place? Because throughout the whole movie, the background of the city is just disturbing. All you hear is like either somebody yelling profanities, or you have kids screaming, and obviously these murders happening, and it rains all the freaking time. Like, I mean, at some point, you like, did Fincher invested in some, rain making equipment?
Actually, that's one of my notes here. They actually film every time it was raining. Fincher decided that rain was going to be a setting for the entire movie, because it helps create the mood.
It was never in a script, and never rain mentioned in any scripts, which was four of them.
That was a Fincher decision, because one, it's easier for you to film because you don't have to rely on the schedule. So if it's raining that day, you can just continue raining. But he decided, it's like, hey, I want this film to continue that dark, gritty theme. It's going to be raining. Why? Because rain is, it's everybody associates rain with like depressed, or sadness, or there's something like murky or musty around. And this is the vibe that the entire movie starts giving you from the beginning.
Nobody's happy in the rain. Like you
exactly
get to that depression state of mind, and that's what this place, this city represents. It's also like where the character of Somerset is in his last 7 days, as he tells the males that for the next 7 days you under my kind of jurisdiction, and I'm gonna kind of like just introduce you, and I'm gonna walk away, and everything is on you. And that brings us to the first murder scene, where the only question that the Somerset asks is like, hey, did the kid see what happened? And the detective is like complete asshole. He's like, who the effing cares? Like, what the kid's seen, that they dead. Like, move on. Like, this is the temple of the city. Move on. Like, people are dying left and right. It's like this is the reality of this place. And then it brings us next to our first murder, which is gluttony, and it's post-murder scene where both detectives kind of try to look for clues, and they see this big dude and a pile of spaghetti, and he's gone. But before he's gone, he was tortured and he was force-fed this bowl of spaghetti, and that's when we're starting to realize through the eyes of the Somerset, where he says that this is not lost. This is not the unique case. This is going to continue. And this is where like the story starts. This is where we introduce to this killer who we don't know it exists. The next thing what happens is that Somerset tries to push everything on, not on Mills, because he's like, hey, listen, you guys do you, I'm out, he's not ready, but this is not going to be the last case. And of course what happens next, we see the next murder, and the next murder is greed. And
Yep.
that's the guy who was he
I think he was a lawyer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the lawyer who was he was left there to make a choice. He had to cut. This is the first note that we find, is that this guy had to sacrifice a pound of flesh, I guess for his sins, because he's representing greed in this scenario. So he had to sacrifice his 1 pound of flesh, no less, no more, and he would be set free. As in the movie, it says like he would cut off from the love handles.
From the love handles.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't enough, because he bled and he died. But in this scene, we have a little bit more clues. We have a photo of his wife with red eyes, and we kind of get the start of this trajectory. I don't know if you want to go through every murder and explain it.
No, the concept is, this serial killer in this movie, he picks his victims associated to the 7 deadly sins. Okay. For those who've never heard of the 7 deadly sins, they're referenced a lot on Dante's Divine Comedy. And like we said, it's gluttony, greed, sloth, lust, pride, and then wrath, envy and wrath.
Right.
Those are the 7 deadly sins.
Right.
And we'll go briefly through them, because the movie shows you 5. Okay, because the last 2 happen in the 3rd act, and then that's like when all the big reveals start coming in, because you'll see 5 sins, and the last 2, they reveal themselves in the 3rd act. But now that we've talked about the Somerset, Somerset is it's a by the book detective. Like you said, he has 7 days left before he can retire peacefully. He doesn't want this case at all. He's like, I don't want it, because he already knows that this is gonna drag him in, and he wants to avoid that, because it's a character that you'll see later as part of his development. He gets dragged into this case, and he
sees that Mill's not ready. He sees that nobody gonna help him, because there's nobody out there as equipped with knowledge and experience. So he goes to the library. What he can do, he gathers some books, he writes some notes, he spends 16 or whatever hours in the library. He gives that package to the Mills. When he freaks out, you can see him in the car while it's raining. He's reading the book, and he's like, "Oh, F this!" This Dante guy. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, it's too much for him to handle, and he wants to. He gets somebody else to get him the Cliff Notes. Right, the Cliff Notes are like the summarized version of all those books that Somerset gives in the movie.
Books for dummies,
It's like Cliff Notes for dummies, like Dante Divine's Comedy for Dummy. Right. Now that we're talking about Mills, a character played by Brad Pitt, who he plays him magnificently. This is probably this is the Oscar-winning performance. Yeah,
take that Once Upon a Hollywood statuette, bring it back to 1995, and give my boy
Brad Pitt. I think that he made 12 Monkeys after 7.
Yep.
Yeah,
so that was his.
This is shocking, because he got nominated for 12 Monkeys, Best Supporting Actor. That was his first nomination of his career, right, for his role in 12 Monkeys. This role, he played to the bone for this role. He really loved this role.
Right.
Talking a little bit about Brad Pitt, he refused to do this movie if the original ending wasn't kept.
You're taking the words off my mouth.
Yeah. The whole what's in the box ending, the head in the box ending, that was not the original ending that the studio wanted. The studio wanted something more action orientated.
So let me tell you how it's supposed to end.
Yeah.
So an original script, they actually take John Doe to the church where he's kind of, gonna show him what's the everything where it's gonna happen. Well, he somehow jumps into this tunnel, escapes. There's a gun planted for him. Mills follows him. He shoots Mills. He hits his. That's the scene which stays because before they leave the station, remember they put on the bulletproof vest. Like, I mean, why would you do that? There's not supposed to be a shootout, but in the original there was a shootout. So, and the way that ends is pretty much that Mills dies, and John Doe kills him, and he tries to burn the church where they are, and the detective Somerset, William Somerset, he carries Mills out, and the building collapses, and John Doe dies with that building. So that was the second kind of script, which the Waller.
And that's the ending that the studio wanted.
Right. But the script which was sent to Fincher was with the ending with
the head in the box. Yes.
Now, one more thing about that is that in a original script, this is how the ending went. So the Somerset receives the box, he runs to the Mills, telling him, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." But instead of Mills shooting the John Doe, Somerset throws the knife, because you see the throwing knife, it's always in a movie, but it's never actually used for anything.
Yeah.
It's very precise. He throws the knife at Mills. Mills shoots and fires at Somerset, okay, and then shoots the John Doe. Then he's taken to whatever the place, I guess whatever they hold criminals jail. Yeah. And he writes the note. Mills writes the note to Somerset saying, "You're right. I'm sorry." And that was the original ending of the movie. Yeah. The second ending I told you, and there was a third ending actually where instead of Mills shooting John Doe, Somerset shoots John Doe and then shoots himself. So they were playing with a lot of different endings before what we got in the end.
Yeah, and this is like, look, Fincher wanted the ending, the original ending, which is
head in the box.
Head in the box ending. That's what the one that Fincher wanted. Fincher came back. Fincher had given up directing after Alien 3 because
disaster.
It was a disaster. It was a studio control movie. He never had any control whatsoever making that movie, and it was a bad experience. So he said,
never wanted to make another movie.
New Line Cinema sends him the script. He loves the script. And they sent him the wrong script. It was a script with the head in the box ending. And Fincher says, "I'm making this movie with this ending." And then when the studio wanted to change the ending to one of the ones that Aleks just explained, Brad Pitt said, "I'm not filming unless you keep the original ending." And the reason Brad Pitt wanted to do this because he already had a bad experience with Legends of the Fall, where they had to change the ending because audiences they didn't like it. So the studio said, "We need to change the ending." Like, whoever has seen Legends of the Fall, it's an amazing movie. But the ending doesn't fit to what you see throughout the entire ending. And we're not going to ruin Legends of the Fall. It's another amazing movie that you should definitely check out if you have the opportunity. And maybe we'll discuss it in another episode of this podcast. But it's the reason why Brad Pitt's like, you either keep the ending or you have to find another actor. And this movie was already being delayed a lot. They didn't have the budget to go get another actor because they already had Brad Pitt, who was at that time wasn't a high-paid actor, so they could afford him. But trying to get somebody else, it could have been higher. So they're like, no, okay, we'll keep the ending, and let's keep on rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, do you even imagine the different ending? Like, that movie does not fit. They actually, somebody was. I don't know how true it is, but they thought that they can put a dog's head in it because Brad Pitt's head.
I read about that.
Yeah, like he was calling them his kids, so they thought like maybe that's gonna be enough to push him over the edge and make him into Raph. Which that was the design plan.
And I'll tell you my experience watching. Like, I saw this movie for the first time. I probably was around 12 or 13 years old, right? A buddy that I had growing up back home in Puerto Rico, he had the movie on VHS, and I had never seen it. And I was like, well, can I borrow this for it? Like, I'm kind of curious, I read the summary behind the box. I'm like, okay, cool, this looks interesting. I did not see that ending coming, okay? At that time when I saw this movie for the first time, I already knew who Kevin Spacey was because I had seen him in American Beauty, and I already had seen The Usual Suspects by then, so I already knew who Kevin Spacey was. But the fact that he shows up in the movie as John Doe in the third act, I didn't see it coming. I imagine the audiences in 1995 when they saw this movie in theaters, they didn't see it coming either because Kevin Spacey is not credited in the movie. They only credit him at the very end as John Doe.
He's first credited though.
Yeah, he's the first credit when the title end credits show. He's the first. Kevin Spacey is John Doe, but the title sequence doesn't show you Kevin Spacey as in the or even the posters of the movie. He's
Which
not
was
in the
another
posters.
new thing. Like you always seen who's in the movie. That was the big thing. Like everybody promoted the movies, the writers.
Yeah, and you're thinking that John Doe is probably played by a B actor that nobody knows because he's not relevant to the story. It's just a John Doe, but they show Kevin Spacey in that third act walking into the police precinct, and you're like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" But going back to casting, like Brad Pitt as Detective Mills, like hot-headed young detective, fresh out of a transfer, he resembles everything that the Detective Somerset isn't. It's the opposite, right?
Right. I mean, we've seen this dynamic before. Like, right, you have a cop paired up with another cop who is not competitive at all. Like, who it always reminded me about Lethal Weapon, like Mel Gibson.
Yeah, the old buddy cop routine.
It's not as funny or as sad. However, there's few jokes in the movie, but it's not as.
And I think this is a way that David Fincher plays with you while you're watching this movie, because you get these two detectives that are opposite of each other. Right. You're expecting that this is going to be like, oh, they're just going to solve the case and they're going to become partners, right? This is the vibe that you're trying to get. But no, Fincher's going to throw you a million curveballs.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that True Detective Season 1 would ever happen without Se7en?
No. I think Se7en is a big influence.
In the same concept, and they stretch it over 8-hour show. Like, it's the same. One guy's like, I'm all by this mysterious things, and the guy's like, come back to Earth. Like, we're not living in this mystery world. Everything's.
I 100% agree.
Right. So, as you mentioned, like, this movie influenced so many things which came out, and to your point, to bring it back to the setup for Somerset. I mean, for the Mills, you see his interaction with Tracy, which is played by fantastic Gwyneth Paltrow. At least at that time, she was fantastic before she started selling. We ain't gonna go there. She started selling.
Selling her goop lineup.
All right, yeah. If anybody interested, link down below. No, I'm just kidding. But he calls himself Serpico, if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
Which is reference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have a little technical difficulty here. Alex, are you here with us? There you go.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you froze for a second, but you're back. So you were talking about the reference Serpico.
Right. So, I mean, it's Al Pacino playing this cop who is by the book. And he's been inserted in this very corrupt department where he's, going to make it different. And he's like, oh, Serpico needs to go to work. And she's like, plays it off. Oh, yeah, Serpico, you got something in your eye, So, like that, and it shows, like, these little things show that the chemistry that they have between each other. And that's the beauty of Fincher, where he takes these little moments, gives the actress a very little screen, but he makes you care about her,
She makes a big difference in that movie. Like, even though she only has probably like 3 scenes in that movie, probably 2 or 3.
Right, so we got, a little bit more, but so you got the beginning, then you got her inviting
the dinner, and then when they go to the diner. So probably like 3 scenes.
And then at the end, when she's, they spooning right before.
Yes, but they're very pivotal scenes. They show you.
Like the box would not work without that character
being
like cared for.
Like, exactly. They make you care for the character.
Right, and the way that Fincher does it without over overdoing it is perfection. Because if you do read the script, and I'm not trying to push anybody to read it, I'm just giving you an example how a director takes what's written on page and kind of tweaks it. There's a scene in the diner where two asshole kids or teenagers start like catcalling Tracy, Gwyneth Paltrow, and kind of doing gestures with their mouths, and then Somerset shows them his badge and is like, "Get the f out of here!" And they flip him over. It's like overdoing. We don't need like feel pity for her. We already feel for her. She's a teacher. She can't get a job. She hates the place, but she's here to support her husband, and she's pregnant. Like, that's it. The recipe for MovieBytes. There you go. The recipe for the perfect in love with the secondary character is right there. You don't need to overdo it. You don't need to go through the length of explaining anything. You just set up the exposition, and you just let it audience to pick it up, right? And that's what happens with that character. She has very little screen, but she's very important to the storyline.
She's the definition of vulnerability
Right.
for Brad Pitt's character.
And another thing that you notice through reviewing and reviewing is like, there's not really many good characters or positive characters. Like, every person in there is an asshole. I mean, besides maybe the coroner guy who kind of is like, I'm just cutting the guy off, and then the guy who's like looking at fingerprints. You got the police chief who picks up the phone and makes the funniest joke ever. Is like, this is not even my desk, and hangs up the phone.
Which, by the way, the police chief is played by Arlie. I forgot his last name, but he was a drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket.
Lee Ermey.
Yeah.
Ermey,
amazing actor.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I don't give a F how you guys gonna do it, just do your job. Like, I don't care results. I'm not here to hold your hand, just get it done. And then you got like the California guy who is played by another famous guy. But
is that the character that John C. McGinley plays?
I think so. Yeah, it's the guy who
John C.
busts
McGinley,
the gun, and he's like, "You deserve this." And the guy
famously known for playing Dr. Cox in the TV show Scrubs.
Okay, never seen that one. I know.
Yeah, Scrubs, amazing TV show. But he did a couple of small movies. Also, he was in Point Break, as well. And he has a lot of small roles that he has made before, but he's more famously known for Dr. Cox from the TV show Scrubs.
Right. So he's an asshole too, let's just be honest. And then, you got, obviously, John Doe is a horrible person, and then all the Sinisters, they are not good people, right? You see them being murdered, not being murdered, you see them in aftermath, and that's another great thing that Fincher does, is he never visualizes himself what happens, but he gives you all the clues. And whatever you can picture, whatever your fantasy will take you, that's more horrible. I mean, it's more horrific than anybody can put on the screen, because that's what your fear is. Like, you look at the guy, in a bowl with spaghetti, like you think like, how would that actually play out? Like, what if I was that guy? Or what if I was asked to cut a pound of flesh? Like, where do you cut? Like, what would you cut? I mean, I'm 140 pounds. Like, I mean, a pound of me, like, come on, dude. Like, I cannot be greedy. One thing that movie taught me, like, I cannot be greedy. I couldn't cut anything out of me. And that's the setup for these characters. There's not too many good people. Like, who is good? Like Somerset, Mills, and Tracy. Like, that's your collage of kind of good characters. I mean, maybe,
and it shows you that even the goodest person has a sin.
I mean, that's the whole point of the movie. That's what John Doe wants to prove to us. Yeah. And I think that's what the initial reaction of the audience was like. Well, like, that's no. I can't see the world through their eyes. I cannot put that lens. I'm used to living in the world through the rose glasses where everything is nice, and that's what we have fed, like, as a society. Like, everything is good. In 2020, we realized that not too many things are actually good, So, like, that reflected in that movie was showing the society not as it is, but it could be in its darkest if we don't put on the brakes. And that's another thing. Like, every script does start with one thing, and it's the ending quote of the movie, and it's the Hemingway, "The world is fine place, and we're fighting for it." And that's kind of the last part of the movie, which we're gonna, you know, talk
Yeah.
about it, because Somerset only says, "I only agree with the last part of that saying, which the world is only worth fighting for."
Do you think this movie would have been different, like if it was released this decade, this past decade? Do you think the movie would have been different?
Do you think it would be more popular, more successful? Like, what's the more
would you
box
think it would
office
have had
friendly?
would have had the impact that that movie had in 1995 if it was released, let's say, in 2015?
I think that withstands. I think that movie withstands time. I think you can watch it now, and that's what we're trying to get people to kind of like go and see that, because it's a great example of reflecting on a society, reflecting on yourself, through kind of like understanding like what makes a person do these things. You know, how horribly you had to be treated, which we don't get the background of the John Doe. Like, you don't know nothing about him except that he's wealthy and he's educated. That's the two characteristics they give him, and he's been doing this for the long time.
Yeah, and you find that out in the movie, because Somerset, you know, it's like this guy went to the library and he went out and got books out on the seven sins, on Catholicism,
Right.
Dante's Inferno, you know, the Divine Comedy, like books that people, not saying people don't read, but it's not books that your average Joe is going to read.
Yeah, but again, those books are ancient history. Like, let's be honest. Like, this mythology is just, it was, you know, to keep people in fear. Like, if you sin, you go to purgatory. You got this, you know, Dante's Inferno. That's all was to kind of scare you. But that's a reflection. He takes that idea and reflects it. Well, how about, you know, we give you the phone in one hand and the pills in another hand, and we just, you know, carve your face into the turkey. What are you gonna do? You're gonna call the medics, or you're gonna swallow the pills? And as you can see, the victim of pride in this scenario swallows the pills, which is, I mean, I understand her choices. Like, in that, like, I mean, this movie, even as horrific it is, it still makes you like see the human behavior and see the human connection.
I enjoy watching this movie. I've seen this movie. I've lost count how many times I've seen this movie. But it just keeps driving you to like enjoy it, and now, even like after your first watch, you start analyzing it more.
And after that's the 15th watch, you keep analyzing it.
Yeah, and it's something that Fincher just does with all his movies. If you see Fight Club does the same thing. It's a movie that keeps you analyzing it.
Right.
You see Gone Girl. It's a movie that you're gonna watch again and analyze it, because it's just his methods of directing. He just creates, like you said, beginning. It's he creates movies that just puts you at the edge of your seat, and you can't catch every single detail by your first watch.
No, I mean, I don't think I'm not designed to catch it. I think Fincher is one of those directors who hides very well his true intentions. I mean, we don't want to talk about different movies because maybe we can go back to them. But in this movie, it's you cannot stop to think how Somerset is defensive of the John Doe's methodology. Like, Somerset almost, like, you know, I don't want to say like he puts him on the pedestal, but he's like, I can understand what he's doing. Like, you know, he follows, the way he catches him is just by following the mental imagery what John Doe created, and how he put these puzzles together, which, you know, I'm gonna come back to that at the end. But and he's like, hey, this guy is very intelligent, he's very smart, he's a nutcase obviously, but he has a method to his madness. Where Mills is like, no, this guy is, you know, Jodie Foster made him do it. My dog made me do it.
Yeah, lunatic.
Right, he does not see him
yeah.
as a human. This guy is psycho. This guy is off the rails. There's nothing human about him. He's just wrong in the head, and that's what Mills goes by.
Yeah, it's emotion. He's an emotionally driven character, and this is something that Morgan Freeman's character in the movie, at one point in the movie, he goes like, you need to take your emotion out of this. Emotions are going to make you make very harsh decisions, and this is just clearly foreshadowing. Now, right. Fincher is setting you up already with this line. Like, this character's going to do something stupid that's going to be based off his emotions.
And that's what happens at the end. This is where we left kind of puzzled. Could it go differently? Like, what do you think? There's any way it could have done different? Let's talk about this, okay? So originally, obviously, John Doe had a plan. Originally, there was 7 victims, and Mills only comes to the picture at the beginning of the murders, right? So John Doe has 5 days to adjust his plan, and as we know from the movie, he at least was involved with one of the victims for an entire year. So how do you think that transition happened? What was John Doe's inspiration to make himself into Envy and turn
That's a very good question.
into Wrath?
I don't know how I can answer that.
Right. And that's the thing, like, you just watch the movie and you kind of like, everything fits. That's what Fincher does so brilliantly. He just puts everything in perspective. It starts very slow, and then you have this like first murder, second murder, third murder, and then fourth and fifth is basically just, it's back to back.
Yeah. So going with your question, so do you think that John Doe in the movie alter his plan?
Absolutely.
After he interacts with Mills in the apartment scene in the shootout, he alter his plans. Like, the last 2 sins were somebody else, but when Mills does what he does,
I mean, we don't find any evidence, and it's not like, if we want to talk about movie honestly, we gotta talk about things which were not done properly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, we don't find the pride picture or evidence of the girl, that the famous actress who got her face cut off, anywhere in the apartment. There's only one picture of the lost girl and the receipt about the horrific thing that was built for that particular execution. That's it. And that's, you only see the Polaroid picture of that for a split second, and you don't even see the girl. And the horrific things which were done to her is only explained to you by another brilliant performance by who was the actor who did Leland Orser. That's the guy who played the portrayer, I guess, the guy who did things to the lost girl. Remember the interrogation scene, and what was done in that scene is that the actor, he stayed up for a few nights, so he did not get any sleep. So as you can see in him in that sleep, he's hyperventilating. He keeps taking breaths so he can get that emotional state of the person who went through that, and that's a brilliant performance. I mean, Fincher went through lengths to put actors through hell for that, for the entire movie, but going back to the place where they find the photo of the lost girl, you never find a photo of the next victim, right? At least that should be there. He did not have any room to run away. He already planned it. I understand, going to the Mills apartment and taking the head of his wife, put it in the box. I mean, obviously it's all kind of sounds crazy. You had to do it all in one night, but that's already been covered by a lot of movie scenes and everything. That it does not fit, but it fits the narrative. It had to happen fast, and it had to happen through that perspective. But that's the main question which always bothered me, like, where's that switch goes from having two victims already into not having them, and switch and pivot into Mills and himself as the envy. Maybe he had himself as the envy and he needed somebody to kind of be wrath, but again, how you make it happen.
And just confirms it, like, this character is super smart, that he knows that Mills is going to become the last sin of his killing spree. He knows.
But how do you think he knows though? And this is like, if you want to get into the thing which I'm about to like break it down to you guys, which is my personal take, which is not based on. I mean, I've searched the internet. There are a few people who kind of connected these dots and kind of threw that grenade out of there.
Yeah.
But that grenade was always shut down, and what I'm about to kind of discuss with you.
So what's your take? Like, let's go ahead and jump into that. What's your take on
All right,
this?
so this is the dessert of this MovieByte's premiere, and I'm gonna explain to you what I see on the screen from the beginning till the end, from the perspective that I watched that movie.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go.
All right, so William Somerset, the detective William Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, is at least involved with John Doe, or is a mastermind behind the killings.
Okay.
And that's the sad, like that makes this movie the saddest, darkest, most horrifying thing ever created in the history of the cinema. But if you think about it, let's just break it down. Mills would never find any single clue without Somerset pointing his nose into the clues.
Okay.
So Somerset is very quick of catching these clues. The guy has some strips of metal or plastic in his stomach. He goes to the scene. He finds the refrigerator. He opens the door of the refrigerator. He puts them, on the floor. Boom! We got the matching pattern. We move the fridge, we got the gluttony, because without gluttony, we don't even have a motive, and we don't have the first saying, about the Paradise Lost when we're starting our journey. Then he's like calling his buddy John Doe. He's like, hey, bro, you gotta leave some more clues, because this guy ain't gonna have it. It's not gonna happen. It's our grand master plan, not gonna happen. So the next scene, you see greed written in blood all over the carpet. All right? So then we leave the markings of the wife pointing at the wall. Okay. So then Somerset does all these books, all of this, giving Mills an opportunity to kind of catch up, to give him an idea what we're dealing with. So after that, we go into, the dinner party. And that's where the cringiest part happens, is that laugh, that joke, which like I have goosebumps thinking about it, is that the train goes by and the Somerset is like, whoa, you guys are like screwed. You're like, you moved here, you wanted a better future. This place is a shithole as a city. And you got tricked by the horrible asshole agent who showed you your apartment for 5 minutes, and you have a fucking vibrating home. And he got this maniacal laugh. If you rewatch the movie, you see he's just starting laughing out of fucking nowhere by himself, like a lunatic.
Yeah, I do recall that scene. Yeah, I always found that a little bit creepy.
So I mean, just follow me, just for the shits and giggles. All right. So then the Somerset goes back and helps Mills to find out this one clue. He's like, buddy, let's go. And he's like, Mills, I'm tired. I don't want to look for anything. I want to go drink beer and go to sleep. I was like, there's always one thing. And he's like, oh, maybe this picture. So boom, we got our next clue. So we take the picture to the now widow, and you got to see something, you got to see. And she's like, oh, this painting is upside down. What is behind the painting? The Somerset doesn't even waiting for it. He jumps on the thing, starts wiping, dusting the prints, right? So we find the prints, we go to the lab, they on the couch, they sleeping buddies, and the Somerset explains to him everything. And that's the scene where Somerset explains. And I want you to kind of like listen, because I got it pulled up here. So Mills asks him, when you tell me, what do you think we're doing? And Somerset says, we pick up the pieces. We take all the evidence and all the pictures and all the samples. We write everything down and note what time things happen. And Mills says, well, that's all? And Somerset continues, we put it in a nice pile and file it away on a slim chance it ever needed in a courtroom. It's like collecting diamonds on a desert island. You keep them just in case you ever get rescued. But it's a pretty big ocean out there. So Fincher just gives you that out there. Like, this is the movie where you put all these clues together and you're on a fucking deserted island. And this is my diamond, and this is like, if you get it, and if ever Fincher comes back to our show and tells me that this is exactly what happened, that's the only way we get. He's
gonna be calling you after this podcast. Right, the FBI is calling you right now. They're on your fucking door.
So okay, let's just move on. And Mills is like, "Fuck you," you know. I seen all of this, and it's not true. And this is like, okay, it's an you know, how we can support this idea. All right, so then we see the guy being found, and he's like in a coma. He has no clues. So we're kind of we're in a plateau. Like, nothing's happening. They have no more clues. So what does Somerset do? The silliest thing that any fucking villain would do. He called his FBI body to bring up some fucking evidence from some library cards, which somehow randomly gonna match this John Doe with his address to some random book which was taken out. Like, John Doe does not need library card. He has ton of money. He would buy the books in the thrift store. Okay, but now here we go. We already caught up. We don't think about it. We get this list from this FBI agent with the name John Doe and the address. All right, I will pause here. Let me just refresh.
You need to catch a breather. He's deep into this conspiracy theory of his.
I mean, listen. Why would the John Doe shoot? He walks up the stairs. He looks at two dudes at his freaking door. He turns around and he walks the back, because it's a long hallway. No, wait, they don't see him. He's not the suspect. He walks away. Okay, but we need to test our protagonist. How he's gonna react in a situation if he put through stress. Is he gonna be our wrath? So they shoot at him, and Somerset just stays put, and Mills chases John Doe through the streets, through the rain. Great action scene. Fincher does phenomenal scene here. Beautiful shot when John Doe puts the gun to Mills' head, and the Mills wimps no. And that's the only upside down shot. Right before the same reverse thing happens, when in this scenario at the end of the movie you have John Doe on the floor and Mills is pointing the gun to his head.
Yeah.
Afterwards, he goes upstairs. Somerset, do not enter, do not break this door. We need to do it by the book. I just told you we're here to collect the evidence. I just told you we're here just to make sure that we can properly present things to the courtroom. Somerset does not do anything in this fucking movie. He's just pointless, useless motherfucker who just guides little puppet through entire movie. So Mills breaks down the door. He gets the phone call from the John Doe who tells him, you know what, you passed the test. You're ready. I'm going to alter my plan. It's going to go really quick, and we're going to see it. Now there's the saddest thing about this whole thing, which makes just, it makes me very sad. And that's the moment when they have the conversation in the bar. So in the bar, they have a conversation. I don't have it pulled up here, but you can look where they talk about perspectives, where, Somerset is like, I'm done with this city. I'm done with this. It's so bullshit. Everybody's bad. Fuck everybody. And Mills is like, you know what? Fuck you. Like, you're the one who gave up. I'm not giving up. I'm still going to go and fight for every one of them because I care. And he says, you want to be a hero? You want to be a fucking champion? He's like, no, I just want to do what's right. And he leaves him at the bar. And he goes home to his wife. And this is the saddest scene of the whole theory. All right. He goes home, spoons with his wife, says, I love you, honey. I love you very much. Okay. And the next scene, Fincher shows us Somerset sleeping in bed with himself, by himself, and that fucking metronome ticking. And the only thing I have to think in my mind is word envy. Envy. Somerset is the one who envies Mills' simple life. Somerset is the one who walked away from the girlfriend or whatever who had the kid. So he envies, and in my perspective, it's collective. The Somerset and John Doe, it's one villain. It's the collective. Okay, it's not separate people. I mean, it's separate people, but it's a one ideology. And then he gets up and he starts throwing the knife. He breaks the metronome, and then we're in the third act. And when we're in the third act, there's two main things happen. Three main things. One, when he walks in, then John Doe walks in and says, "Detectives." He looks at Somerset and he says, "I know you," and everybody thinks that he's talking to Mills, but he's not. He looks at Somerset and says, "I know you." It's the buddy who's playing chess with in the beginning of the movie when you see the chessboard. That's the two dudes. They play fucking chess. They buddies. And then
I gotta watch this movie again.
I'm telling you now, everybody has to rewatch this movie from this fucking perspective. So now we're in the car, and the Somerset kicks it off, and he's like, "Hey, Johnny boy, like what the fuck, why are you doing all these things?" And then the Brad Pitt and John Doe has their phenomenal conversation, which everything fits in the theory so far. And then there's added things from Fincher, which were never in the script, and he's like, "Hey, John, who made you, like, did Lord made you do it? Like, did God made you do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, Lord works in mysterious ways." And you see this little like gloating thing on the Morgan Freeman's face is kind of like, "Yeah, I'm playing God here. Like, I'm the guy behind the fucking scenes." And at the end, the most tragic thing when he says that hey, your wife, her head is in the box, and I killed her and unborn child within her. And at that point, you have Somerset and John Doe glimpse at each other, and John Doe smiles and says, "Oh, he did not know." And that quote it's to Somerset. Everywhere in the script it said, "You did not know," because he was speaking to Detective Mills. But Fincher changed that. Fincher changed it. "Oh, he did not know." It changes the whole concept. These two motherfuckers knew it. And that's the joke. That's their joke. That's what pushes Brad Pitt over the edge. That eliminates the last good man standing on that fucking planet. And he pulls the trigger. And he executes him. And the last thing what Morgan Freeman says is, "I'm gonna keep fighting." And maybe David Fincher will make another fucking sequel.
He won't. Fincher doesn't make sequels.
I know, but I'm just saying. So that's my film theory for movie 7.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aleks has again fucked up my mind, and now I have to rewatch 7 from that perspective to see if I can see what he saw, because I've never looked at that movie that way.
I mean, I don't want to say you're welcome, because it's a very dark perspective. And I'm sure there will be a million people who break it down and say it's not true. This is this, and I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying that was the desire of the screenplay. It definitely was not the desire by the Walker. The guy who wrote it, he never wanted that in there. He always wanted Morgan Freeman as Detective Somerset is a good guy, and Mills is a good guy, and they kind of like trying to stop this guy. They never. I mean, there's always the downfall, and which is I'm totally cool with that. Like, I'm totally cool with that. But that's the thing that I always had those questions like why, where, and only from this perspective those questions are answered. They're kind of like glued. There's no more questions. Like, there's a few minor details, but if you look from that perspective, where Somerset and John Doe are two guys who set this whole plan in motion, there's a lot to that. And I mean I don't want to see Fincher being evil genius, but he might be.
I gotta rewatch this movie now. Like that changes a lot, and Yeah. Are you gonna do this every fucking time we watch it?
I mean, you picked the movie.
Are you just gonna
maybe
question life or re-examine life? Look for the meaning of life.
Listen, pick some romantic comedy, so I don't have to fucking dig. You did this to yourself. I had no saying in the movie. Tell the audience.
On the next episode, we'll be talking about 13 going on 30, and Aleks is gonna manage to create a conspiracy theory on the why Jennifer Garner's character
abducted.
But believes she's a 30-year-old woman instead of a 13-year-old woman. It's all the mental illness.
I mean,
God damn it, man!
I told you I'm gonna do this. You did not believe me. I had to do this.
I'm sorry to the people that are listening. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sorry. This is exactly why we're creating this podcast.
If you're with me, good. If you're without me, great. Just tell me where I'm wrong. Just point out the plot things which I covered, like tell me why there was a chess set, tell me why detective,
it's the little things,
Somerset is just fucking there for no, like he just wizarded with a magic wand getting these clues, like boom, refrigerator, boom, the painting.
The Hardy Boys don't have shit on him.
I mean, yeah, like bro, he's just
I got a raging clue.
Do nothing at the end. All he does, he just watches Mills pull the trigger, and he's like, all right, job well done. I'm gonna keep fighting.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up here with today's episode. I think this is the best way to end this. I got nothing to say regarding that. Aleks has managed to change my perspective, so now I gotta sit down and rewatch this hell damn movie again. Because I never looked at it that way. No. I just see what probably Fincher intended to see, and you just went deeper and actually went behind Fincher's brand, and this is what exactly Fincher wanted.
No, yes, but like, just watch it. Just watch it from.
Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch it definitely from your perspective.
Not my. Whoa! Yeah, it's not. That's perspective where the Somerset and John Doe is connected, masterminding this thing together.
I'll watch it under that perspective.
Great.
But yeah, we'll wrap it up. I think we've covered a lot today.
Thanks for two people who's still here. Thanks for two people who's still watching and listening. If you're still here, you managed to pull it through. Kudos to you. Maybe we make something better next time. Maybe not, but we're gonna keep trying. Thank you all for being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next week we will be digesting the movie Joker, directed by Todd Phillips. That will be our second episode, so we got a lot of homework to do. But we'll be discussing the movie Joker next week. Thank you all that are listening, watching. This is the first episode of MovieByte podcast, where we digest movies that have impact our culture. This is your host, Ruben, accompanied by my buddy, film enthusiast, Aleks Bykov's Conspiracy Theory. You can hit him up. Actually, you can't hit him up anywhere. He doesn't believe in social media, so that's how off the grid he is. He already knows the FBI is probably knocking on his door.
Thanks for disclosing my last name. Appreciate you, buddy.
They're probably how many Bykovs there is in this fucking United States of America.
There's just one. Well, maybe there's more.
There's probably more. Okay, you're not the only one that hacked the elections. I'm sorry. This is not a political podcast.
All right,
ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for.
I hope you guys enjoy the meal.
Bon appetit with MovieByte. If you have any comments, any suggestions, anything that we can improve, or do you want to add on to more of our topics or themes, we will be reading them all. Just leave them on the YouTube comments, our Facebook page, MovieByte, as well. We'll be posting. This episode should be premiering this coming Thursday. Today is the 5th, so it should be up on your favorite podcast stations on the 7th, and also on YouTube the same day. Again, thank you all for listening, viewing us, and we will see you next week.